where your fear is, there is your task. That was Carl Jung, I think, said that, and a lot of other people throughout history. And what it basically means is, you know, the the thing that you fear that lies between where you are and where you want to be is the monster that you have to fight. It's the dragon that you have to slay. And I made that my mantra and followed it for somewhere between 3 and 5 years. And it applies on multiple levels. It applies at a micro level in each moment, especially when you're feeling something that scares you in a moment. And then it also applies at like a macro level in like when you're planning your life goals and making decisions around those goals about how to achieve them. So it basically for me started right around COVID. I had already known when I was in college, I studied broadcast media. And so one of the big findings, in media studies was kind of explained in this one study, but I think there were several studies around this. But it was one study, and basically it looked at people who watch the news every day versus people who don't watch the news. The people who watch the news every day believed that there was a lot more violence and like murder happening in their city than the people who didn't watch the news every day. And so I've always had this understanding that the news propagates fear. And it makes sense whenever you have a strong reaction, especially fear, about some kind of event. Think, for example, COVID. You see that you see the news talking about it, and it creates fear. It's like, oh, this is what's happening with it now. New development, breaking news. And you panic a little bit, and then you get the information, and then you feel a little bit better maybe, or you feel like at least a little more in control. But you also have this sense that, okay, I need to go back again tomorrow, or I need to keep an eye on this news so that I know, so that I can be in control, and so that I can kind of calm my fears. And so I noticed this happening big time during COVID in the news, the newspapers, on the TV, in social media, Twitter, which is what it was called at that time. Just a lot of fear. And I think it was people were afraid, but I also think that fear keeps people watching, and the media companies have known this for years and years. So there's a healthy mix there, I think. And so I thought about fear, and then I encountered this quote by Carl Jung: "This, where your fear is, there is your task." And I kind of processed all this, right around that same time. And I realized that so many of my decisions in life were made because I feared discomfort or struggle. And so I chose the easier option, or I chose the safer option. I feared the risk. And that really struck me. I was like, oh man, I've been making decisions based on fear. Like this is not how I want to decide the outcome of my life. And sometimes fear is a good indicator, right? Sometimes it's like, yeah, maybe I should stay away from that thing because it is terrifying, and it's terrifying for a good reason. But I think the key is to distinguishing, like, is this a fear that is rational? Is it a fear that's immediate? Like, am I in immediate danger? That kind of thing. And so anyway, I realized all this, that I had been making so many decisions on fear. And I already knew kind of what I wanted in life, pretty much the normal things, like get married, have a family, make enough money to support my family. Um, I've I've dreamed of having land to farm on. I think land is like fundamental in sovereignty and stability, rootedness. So I've always wanted some land to live on and to grow on. And so I started taking baby steps. I had the job part. I was doing good. I had a job that was making, supporting me well. But I didn't have a girlfriend and I didn't have a family and I have my parents, but not like a family that, with somebody. And I didn't have land. And so I started taking baby steps. And the first thing my biggest fear in all of that, the fear that was stood between me and that was a fear of people. I had terrible social anxiety. I didn't even hang out with anybody because it just filled me with so much fear that it just wasn't even fun to be social for me. So I made a plan and I started taking baby steps and I just thought, okay, where is my fear? There's my task. And then I thought, okay, I can't just do that thing. I become paralyzed by fear. What's a step that I can take toward that's not gonna paralyze me? So I took baby steps. I started I think I've told this story before. I went to a bar on Friday night, but the first time I didn't actually walk inside the bar. I was like, I'm just gonna walk past it, and it's gonna be valuable because I'm gonna learn, first of all, what to expect in the surroundings. So I'm gonna know kind of what I'm expecting to see. And I'm going to be able to glance inside the bar and kind of get an idea of what it looks like in there. So I have this expectation in my head that I don't have to, I'm not going into complete chaos. I'm going into something I understand already a little bit. And then the next week, the next Friday, I went inside and ordered a beer. And then somebody actually talked to me and brought me out to the back of the bar, and there was somebody playing music, and we sat there and had drinks, and then I left. My goal was to have one drink and then just leave, And then I joined Toastmasters to start giving speeches. And then I moved to a big city, a bigger city, and which was a huge change for me. I'd never lived in a big city, and I was like, I've always kind of wanted to, and I've always been a little bit afraid to, and so I'm going to do that. And plus, that's where young people are generally these days, and I wanted to meet people my age. And when I moved to Pittsburgh, it was like pedal to the floor. I was going to social gatherings just several times a week. And, the fear, it gripped stronger at times, and I just focused on the task. I knew that if it was terrifying me, then it was worthwhile to do because my comfort level would expand at least a little bit. And, comfort zones, I think, do expand, but it's very it's very slow going, especially today's day and age when all of our social connection, or most of it anyway, is very time bound and planned, and it's based around a specific event. There's very little spontaneous or even routine connection, except maybe with work, with your job, that you see people every day. But as far as just you'd think about tribal cultures, and it was just all day long you were just connected with people. And now it's okay, we'll get together from 5 till 7 p.m. or from 6:30 till 8:30 p.m. to do this specific thing. So it's very planned and very almost bureaucratic in a way. And so when it's like that, the opportunities your comfort zone is going to expand slowly because you still have all this other time where you can just be comfortable and and not expanding your comfort zone. And so I think that plays a big role anyway. But so what I talked about a little bit ago, I kind of mentioned was that fear being your task can be something in the moment or something you planned. Moving to Pittsburgh, going to these social gatherings were all things I planned. And then one time I had dated a girl, and then I would see her at some of the different events that I would go to, after things didn't work out. And I never got to a point where I was comfortable with her. Like some people are, I'm not like this anymore, I guess, but would get really anxious, like about like when I first met somebody that I liked, and I would just be super anxious. And so with her, we only dated we only hung out a couple times. And so I never got past that point of being super anxious. And then, when things didn't work out, when I would see her at other events and stuff, I would get just super anxious. And one time I saw her and I was like just paralyzed by this fear. And I was already anxious about going to this event. And then she was there, and I ended up, as soon as there was like some discussion about, I think, a poem or something. And as soon as that was done, I just left. Sometimes I would stay and talk or help put tables and chairs back in their places or whatever. And I just got out of there. And I didn't want that to go to waste. I didn't face my fear there. I just went into flight mode. And so I processed that. I thought about it. And I realized that, kind of in the moment, that quote holds just as true, that where your fear is, there is your task. It's hard to even think of that in the moment if you're in a free state, because you just aren't even thinking. You're just in like a flight or a free state, and you're just like, I got to get out of here. But if you can kind of think like, okay, I'm not in immediate danger, I'm just afraid. And then it's abundantly obvious what you're afraid of in that moment. It's like the most obvious thing in the world. Like, I am terrified of this person in here. I don't know if I should say something or what I should say, or if I say something and my voice sounds shaky and she can tell that I still like her or whatever. I don't know. There's a million thoughts and you're just terrified. And it's really clear. What I'm most terrified of is talking to her, is being seen by her. I wish she just didn't even know I was here. And so there's the task. The fear is so obvious that it makes the task really easy to figure out. It's like, oh, now I know exactly what I have to do. Now I just have to muster the courage to do it. And so it's like the options are, you can be held captive by the fear, completely lost in it, and miss out on the whole moment, the whole experience. Or you can do the thing that terrifies you and do it as soon as possible and be free from the hypnotic spell, because as soon as you do it, if your life's not in immediate danger, as soon as you do it, your fear has been faced, and it's been seen. And when things are seen, they're not monsters anymore. They have an identity, and they're seen. And so they're kind of disarmed in a way. So the fear being the task is, I think it's good. I think it's good advice. The only thing is, if you do it for 3 years, it gets exhausting. Like, chasing down fears it's not easy. Courage is like, at least for me, it might be the most difficult thing there is. Not having no fear and doing something is great, but having fear and still doing it is like one of the most difficult things you can do, I think. And so ultimately, I did this for at least 3 years, maybe longer, and I unfortunately the fear doesn't go away, and that was one thing I had to learn. But you do get stronger, you become more courageous, and your comfort zone grows ever so slightly. I didn't get what I wanted. I didn't get the goals that I set out to achieve actually, like the where I am versus where I want to be. I'm not where I was anymore, but I'm also not where I want to be. And so just facing the fear isn't the only thing, I think, is part of that. Or maybe I just didn't do it hard enough, but I went pretty damn hard for a long time. And so I didn't see the fruits that I was hoping for, but I can say that I made some of the best friends I've ever had. I've had some of the most interesting experiences I've ever had. Met amazing people. I've had my heart broken. I've broken hearts. I've cried. I've laughed. I've been humiliated. I've been praised, and I've tried to stay soft through all of it. And I think now, after all this time, I don't know if chasing fear is the answer, but I'm pretty confident that if you're in need of an adventure, chasing fear is like following a treasure map. So, you might find the treasure, or you might be going toward, you're going to be going toward the treasure, and you're going to find whole different treasures than you were looking for. And maybe you'll find your treasure that you were looking for too, and maybe not. I don't know, but where your fear is, there's your task. It at least is a way to grow, I think. But ultimately, yeah, I think it's more that we need to, if a fear is what's stopping you from being your whole, fullest version of yourself, living the life that you are meant to live, then you should face that fear. And I think if you're convinced enough about your calling, then facing the fear you're just going to do it. You're going to be willing to do it. Even if that means taking baby steps toward it. But I don't know. It's just not. I don't think it should either be a mantra in like a way of life because it's just not sustainable. I don't think. I mean, it broke me many times. It's difficult. And life is hard too. But like. It doesn't always have to be hard, and it's not always the thing that fears you that is the best thing or the best task even to do next, So if you're someone paralyzed by fear, it might be worthwhile learning to chase your fear. And I can't say I regret it at all, because just some of the craziest things. I went on a 2-day, 150-mile bike ride with a friend, and we stayed in an Airbnb overnight, and it was like one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. And I moved to a city, and lived in the city for 2 years. I would bike around everywhere, all through the city. I I grew way more than I thought I would have grown ever. So, yeah, it's weird. It's like I kind of hate this idea of where your fear is, there's your task, because it's just so exhausting. But at the same time, it's like, man, if you want to experience life, there's one shortcut for sure. Just face your fears. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on where your fear is, there is your task. Thanks for watching. Peace.